Hello, everybody. How are you all? Thank you for coming and happy adoption day to my little guy. Hooray! So, can everyone hear me okay? I hope you can. Yeah, so the reason why I'm doing this stream is that on Saturday last week, on the 4th, I realized that I had bought Lucius an entire year ago. So, yeah, could everyone just let me know if you can hear me or anything like that? Yeah. Okay. According to my YouTube, is that you guys can hear me quite loudly. All right. So he's decided to wrap himself up in this, which is totally okay. But you might not be able to see him very well. I'm trying to get him out while I'm talking, so please forgive me if I get a little bit distracted. So the reason why I wanted to do this stream is to actually have a bit of a chat about what I've learned about snakes in the past year, how some of the things that I've done that were, mistakes that, rookie mistakes. Some other things that I've learned, like about the physiology of snakes. And yeah, just having a bit of a chat. If anyone's got any questions about some things that I've learnt or anything about him, just feel free to put it in the chat. I will try my best to talk about it and answer any questions. I'm, as you will probably know, not terribly good at checking the chats in the side. So if I miss you, I apologize. Just keep spamming the question. Okay, so when I first got Lucius, he was about 30 centimeters big, and he was such a cutie. I was terrified of him, actually, when I first got him. I did not want to handle him, but at the same time I did. He scared me of the now I'm totally fine picking him up and handling him. Hello, matey. Anyway, but he was just as scared of me, or more so, because a 30-centimeter snake is food for everyone else. Even a highly venomous snake is in extreme danger of being eaten by other things. Anyway, so he was quite defensive towards me when I first got him. I've even got footage of him falling off a log after wanting to strike me. So that was quite a cute footage. He's always been an excellent eater. Too much of an excellent eater, actually. On Tuesday, he tried to strike at me to eat me when I saw him, but that's because he's an excellent eater. He's also been shedding a little bit faster than a snake normally would. So I've got 11 sheds, but he's shed 12 times since I've had him, which is unusually fast. But the reason why I have 11 sheds is that the shed before last ended up having poo in it, so I didn't really want to keep that one for bizarre reasons. So overall, my experience with him has been very, very positive. A couple of times he's stressed me out a little bit, but overall it's been very, very positive. He's an excellent pet. I strongly recommend snakes as pets if you are not afraid of them. And the reason why I'm saying is that they're quiet, which, how often have you heard a snake bark or anything like that? They're quiet, they're clean animals, actually. They're very easy to clean up afterwards. The messiest part about him is the substrate that I put on the bottom of his tank. That stuff gets everywhere. It's like hair. It's sort of, I've walked into my bedroom, which is almost on the opposite end of the house, and have found bits of substrate on the ground, like in areas that I've never actually had anything to do with the substrate I've found. It's like, it's ridiculous. So Atheist Pastor says Lucius isn't quiet, always talking in the chat. Thanks for dropping in, Notja. Callan does make a good point. Some snakes do growl, but they are exotic. There are probably the most common is actually the hissing noise. He's never made a hissing noise. I don't think this species is known to make hissing noises. But I know that hognose snakes tend to hiss, like when they strike, they make sort of like a puffing kind of noise, and that's just a big, I'm big and scary, don't attack me. Vandalia says, hey, about to leave for work. Why doesn't he have his own channel? Because that would be too much work for me. He can just piggyback off mine, really. So a couple of the things that I've learnt while I was started. So I'm going to start right from the beginning. When I got him, as I said, he was about 30 centimeters. So he's still a hatchling. He was about 3 months old when I got him. And so he was, so I got him about 3 months old, and I actually wanted to get another one of the snakes in his clutch. I'm pretty sure it was a female, but she was very, very scared, very, very defensive. And I was like, I won't get her, because I just wanted to respect that she was terrified. So we ended up getting Lucius, and he actually tried eating the guy who sold him to me. Like, he actually struck and tried to eat him, and it kind of was like a bit of a this is what you're going to be going through, Meredith. Like, it was very much like, in hindsight, it was a really good way to know that he wanted to eat everything. And so anyway, he when I took him home, I had to do a lot of paperwork. I had to buy a reptile license. I had to say that I'm not going to buy him and then sell him on within 6 months. I had to do all of these like laws and understand a lot of things. I also had to buy a lot of stuff as well, which is understandable. I mean, you don't go and buy a dog and then not have a leash or food or anything like that. I had wanted to buy a snake for years. I'd wanted to buy a snake for years. The reason why I wanted to get a snake actually was when I was about 20. I was living at home. We had some budgies, and on Christmas Day, heard some flapping around in the budgie cage outside. Walked outside, and a carpet python, which is a similar species to this little guy, was eating my budgie, and I was horrified, as you would be, but it was very, very fascinating. And ever since then, I'd been wanting to buy a snake and get a snake, and it was only until now I've had the opportunity to get one. Vandalia, what? You're supposed to take care of your pets? Yeah, apparently you are. Anyway, so I got him. I did a lot of research, because that was something I learned when I got my first betta, is that I didn't do my research, and I ended up spending $200 on a $7 fish. So I made sure I did all of my research and things like that to see what I was in for, and I was willing to make the sacrifice. Anyway, so when I first got him, I wasn't allowed to handle him for the first week to let him, become accustomed to, his new surroundings. And he just basically hid in his log. for the entire week, and then I fed him. And then the next day, I found him in the plastic tree that I got as a decoration, and he was in there. I was like, "Oh, you've moved, mate!" And then he struck out and tried to hit me, and I was like, this 30-centimeter snake just attacking me. I was like, "Whoa!" And he's, as I said, he's been not aggressive. He's not an aggressive snake. He's, as you can see, very, very calm. But he's a greedy guts. No Rodent says he was in the tree looking for apples, and he doesn't bite me all of the time. But when he does try to bite me, it's not for defensive purposes, but more for trying to eat me. Right now, I am a tree. So yes, atheist pastor, he has bitten me. He's both tapped me, so that's the strike out and then strike back as a defensive thing. And that was when he was about, this long. He hasn't done that for a while. The last time he did it was about a month ago when my stepmother and a couple of children and my dad had come in to meet Lucius. And so, and it was really interesting, even though they were nowhere near his tank, Lucius knew that they were there. So they're very good at hearing. Their hearing is very good. A bit of tea in Danish. Here's a children's python. So that's a snake named after a person called Children, not that they're good pets for children or that they eat children. They are good pets for children, but I don't think they eat them. And Vibrantly Brantley, why do you keep assuming their gender pronoun, Navadia? Because I do. I have to admit, I don't think snakes are the most intelligent of animals. I don't think that's a thing that's an issue with snakes, to be honest with you. Callan says some snakes do eat children, and that is true. But they are the much larger species of snakes, such as anacondas and things like that, and it's extraordinarily rare. For most snakes, humans are just too big to eat. Yeah, so what was I saying? Okay, so some of the things I've learned in regards to snakes is that they are no different to your dog or your cat. So a lot of people, and this is something that does annoy me a little bit, is that, you're like, oh, I have a pet snake, and everyone's like, oh, it's disgusting, or oh, it's gross, or those sorts of things. And I'm just like, it's my dog. Like, how would you like it if, you say, I have a pet dog, and someone comes up and their first reaction is, ew, you have a dog? That's disgusting. Oh my God, kill it with fire. And that's kind of like, it's not a cool thing to say, because they are your pet. And that's one of the big things that really annoys me. Amanda, Lucius is going for the cleavage as per usual. Yes, he does tend to try and hop in and climb around. It makes a lot of sense that he likes to go into the cleavage because it's dark, it's warm, and it's a safe place that smells like something he knows. So yeah, that's a good point. And yeah, so that's one of the things that really annoys me. So if you're a person who doesn't like snakes and someone says I have a pet snake, please, for that person, just go, I don't like snakes, but fair enough, you do you. Don't say that you should burn it with fire, because it's horrible to say that. But we understand, well, at least I understand that attitude. What are you doing? Hey, matey. So in regards to Lucius and how he behaves with me, he does seem to prefer to talk to me and be on me. So I've had a couple of people come over and I dumb him on that person, and he climbs around and does his stuff on this person. But when I put my hand near him, he does climb onto me fairly quickly. So I think he does prefer to be handled by me. Yeah, so and Lucius's personality is really he's quite a sweetheart. He's also very food orientated, as I've mentioned several times, and but he's very chilled out. Like he falls asleep on me on many different occasions. Hey Maya, how you going? Yeah, and blue collar heathen he's pretty active and curious, and he's very curious. He likes to climb and around and look at things and hang around things. Like the other day, he decided to climb into the back of my couch, and I ended up having to feed him to try and get him out of said couch. Is Lucius like a guard snake when Notja tries to get frisky? No, he's not that kind of pet, unfortunately. Oops, sorry about that. Anyway, so what else was I saying? So Lucius's personality is very chilled out, very relaxed, very just a very calm animal. And I think that's fairly common for this particular species as well. Other species can be a lot more aggressive. And yeah, so also this is about as long as he's going to get. He's almost finished growing, I would say. He's probably got another couple of centimeters before he basically becomes fully grown. So that's yeah, so that's about as that's about he's just trapping me here. That's about as long as he's going to get. Okay. In regards to things that I've learned overall about snakes, so their physiology is basically a tube with organs. They have 2 lungs, but one lung is basically defunct. It's almost a vestigial organ. Males have 2 penises. They're called hemipenes, and that's an interesting thing. They're cold-blooded, as you would know, so you need to make sure you have a source of heat coming in. But I don't think they're the smartest animals, as I mentioned earlier, because they tend to forget things. Like, for example, if you don't handle them for a while, they regress to their wild state, and they become very aggressive. Even after, like, when he goes into shed, I leave him alone, and that takes about a week. And he gets aggressive towards me, a little bit more aggressive towards me after the shed. So if he gets aggressive towards me after a week of me not handling him, his fake name, 2 penises and no hands, sucks for them, pretty much. Yeah, so he's pretty easy to tame down. After a week, you just handle him 1 or 2 times. But if I was to be gone for a month and a half or 2 months, it would probably take me a good while to make him get used to being handled again. Morton, Lucius, you know she feeds you, right? Don't strangle her. I don't think they can. I don't feel that they bond to you like a mammal would. I just don't think that's part of their physiology. I wouldn't be surprised if a rattlesnake would bond to you, because they're actually a social species. So that's one of the things I've learned since getting a snake, is that rattlesnakes are a social species. They make best friends. They also don't like like you can have individuals that don't like each other. They also have daycare. So pregnant females will look after the baby rattlesnakes as well. So that's pretty cool, I thought, when I found out about it. And then I learnt about rattlesnake roundups, which horrified me, basically, because that's just like almost a genocide of rattlesnakes, and it's awful. Callan makes a good point. Garters and rattlesnakes are both social animals, and they are. So I wouldn't be surprised if the cognitive capabilities of those two species of snakes would be different to something like a children's python, which is a solitary animal. Amanda goes, I love snakes, but after living in Arizona for a while, I'm not a big fan of rattlesnakes. And that's fair. I mean, I understand. I mean, I'm not a particularly good fan of brown snakes or black snakes or red bellies because, they will kill you. But it's also important to understand that that these are animals that do, that a lot of these things that you hear about are actually not valid. The arguments for it. For example, I've heard people say that snakes don't have pain, don't experience pain because they're cold-blooded, which is absolute bullshit. They do feel pain. I would hazard a guess that every multicellular creature with a central nervous system would have some form of pain receptor. Yes, so Brantley, you have to have a goose hatch the clutch of snake eggs in order for them to imprint on you like a mammal pneumonia. Callan says king cobras are considered to be the smartest snakes. I've heard of king cobras being fairly intelligent. And also, a lot of people actually have king cobras as pets. I personally would never have a venomous snake, mainly because of the amount of times this guy's bitten me by trying to eat me. That's kind of basically a death sentence for I would say for me. I mean, I understand that some people be. A lot of people are quite happy to have a pet venomous snake, but for me personally, I wouldn't do that. And Callan also says they are also cannibalistic, which is interesting. And as pets, you need years of training. Yeah. So I'm only going to be happy, looking after this dude. However, I do hear that the venomous snakes aren't actually quite possibly, I do hear that venomous snakes are quite calm animals as well. It's just, in Australia we have some pretty deadly animals, and the most deadly snake in the world is from Australia. So I would probably not have one of those, just because I value my life. Hey, Skeptic She, how are you, cutie? Oh, sorry, dude. So that's one of the things that I've learned, is that snakes are not aggressive animals. As a rule, they tend to just run away and hide. Their main hunting strategy is just ambush hunters. And I've been caught by him a couple of times where I'm like, oh, where are you, mate? Oh, I've got a snake trying to eat me. So I've been ambush hunted by this dude too. Understatement of the century. About how snakes are not aggressive animals. No, they're not. They're not at all. They're no, as I said, they're no different to having a pet dog. Just, this guy has no legs, no arms, and is probably significantly less intelligent than a dog. Vagrant Sam says, cowards or clever with the ambush prejudice? Ambush, I would say probably clever. So yes, they snakes, there are different types of feeding habits. There are some snakes that are egg that are egg eaters. So you need to buy eggs. There's some actually eat fish, so they stick their head in water and thrash their head around until they get a fish, which is a really interesting interesting thing to watch. There's a couple of things online. There's some snakes that eat snakes, which is interesting. There's even a type of snake that eats snakes that are bigger than it. And scientists were like, how does that work? Yep, Callan says garters eat fish. That is true. So there's lots of different snakes that have a variety of meals. So obviously this guy, he is a carnivore. He eats mice and rats, and probably also chicks and birds and things like that. So and I get his meals from the local pet store, where I got him from, and they're not that expensive. I bought it yesterday. I can't remember what it was because I got a couple of other things as well. But I think it was about $25 for 5. No, I was young. No, 14. It was $14 for 5 mice, which will last me about 5 weeks. So, about $3 a week, which is significantly cheaper than a dog. And I only feed live. No, I don't. I don't feed live. I only feed what's called frozen thawed, because for me, that's the most moral way. So there's a couple of reasons why. The first reason why is that a frozen thawed is safer on the snake. So if the snake is willing to eat frozen thawed, then you should do it. It's safer on the snake, because if you feed live, the snake is can get bitten and attacked and killed by the rat or the mouse. If the snake refuses to eat, which can happen, then you've got a rat or a mouse that you have to look after for the next week while you try it again. There's parasites that could cause. Oh, what do you? I don't know if you can hear him. Can you guys hear that? He's climbing all over the microphone. Yeah, Callan says much safer. The predator can become the prey. Can you hear that? Can you hear him going all over the microphone? The other thing that is also important is that there's parasites in the mouse that gets killed by the freezing process. See you later, Meredith Richardson. Hang on. Who's this? Dude, come back. We want to talk about you. So that's another reason why I feed his that's another reason why I feed him frozen thawed, is to sort of help avoid certain parasites that could get him sick. Not all parasites will be killed by the freezing process, but a lot of them do. It's also more humane on the prey item. So imagine being picked up and thrown into a cage where you can't get out, and your predator is there. I mean, that's an awful way to die, and I would never, ever, ever do that to a living animal, because that's just cruel. And it'd and also they means that they go through unnecessary pain and hurt. So I would. That's another reason why it's also safer on the. It's all not safer, but it's also more humane because the the prey items have to be killed in a humane way, which is usually CO2. So basically, they get put into a CO2 chamber and they just fall asleep. And that's how I would like to go if I was a snake. Has Lucius seen the movie Anaconda? No, I haven't seen that movie in about 10 years, and I remember it being terrible as well. So Vibrant Lee Brantley, no, they don't get frozen. They actually get just put into a gas chamber and have the CO2 just put up to really high, and they just fall asleep. So, it could be nitrogen as well, one of the others, but it's just a lot nicer way to go, isn't it? So overall, frozen thawed is better. I know there's arguments about making them hunt helps with their instincts. I think that's a terrible argument because you don't, you feed your dog chunks of meat that have been processed already, or your cat has also, they don't hunt and kill their own meals. So I don't. Why would that be any different for your pet snake? Yeah, so that's my thing. I'm against unnecessarily feeding snakes frozen live. If you have a snake that refuses to eat frozen thawed but will only eat live, then I can understand that. See you later, Vandalia. And Cullen makes a good point. These snakes wouldn't survive in the wild anyway, so yeah, bad argument. Yeah, and that's true. If he got out, he wouldn't survive at all for a very long time. He might, but it's not likely. What else have I learnt since I got him? I learnt that it's possible to have people turn around and go from I hate snakes, that they're disgusting, to yeah, I kind of like him actually. I've had a couple of people say to me that they hated snakes, but after being exposed to Lucius to see how I interact and how he interacts with me, they've gone, oh no, they're not too bad. And that's one of the things that people I've noticed. If you're afraid of something, a lot of the times it's misinformation. And that's for most things, not just snakes, but things like, homophobia, transphobia, those sorts of things, is that you don't know much about them, I find, and it's fear that comes from ignorance. So, Callan goes, I don't see how anyone could hate snakes now. They are adorable little dogs. They are so cute. But yeah, so having people say, I hated snakes, and then I got to know you and your relationship with the Lucius, and it's okay. And it's really good to hear that. Cats and snakes definitely don't mix, Vagrant Sam, because he said, I've always wanted a snake, but I moved houses too often and wanted a cat more. Yeah, they don't tend to mix very well. Neither do snakes and dogs. Dogs like to try and sniff them, and yeah, so they try to keep snakes away from your pet mammal. So just as a rule. Amanda goes, people ignorantly think snakes are slimy, which is weird. And that is true. It is a bit weird. They aren't slimy. They're scaly. The best way I can describe it is, let's just say you've got a whole heap of sequins that are turned upside down. So they're like the top of the sequin is facing upwards, and just pat that. That's probably the best way to explain it. Yeah, so that's my my experience That's how I would describe um, the feeling of a snake. Um, what else? Has anybody got any? Anybody got any questions? Because I'm happy to continue talking, but I've got a feeling that's, I didn't take my ADHD meds today, so I'm a little bit all over the place. So if anybody's got any questions, please feel free to. He's climbing on that. So, what is some other things? The reason I'm just going to head off the question. The inevitable question is, why doesn't he have a birthday hat on? He doesn't like having his head touched. He's not a big fan of that. I would show you, but he's making a liar of me, but he doesn't really like having his head touched. So that's why, now he's making a liar of me. So a lot of snakes are head shy, which is where they're like, I don't like having my head touched. So that's why he doesn't have a hat on. So yeah, that's why. Is Lucius really Notjo? Is that why we never see Notjo's face? Well, Notjo and Lucius get along quite well. Put it that way. Oh, actually, what I will talk about, I'll talk about the shedding process. Oh, first of all, does he like swimming? I have never actually stuck him in the bathtub to find out. I did when I first got him. He decided to do a poo and then climb all over the poo. So I did actually stick him in the in the sink to try and rinse off the poo, and he swam around for a little bit, but I don't think he enjoyed it, but he was able to swim for a bit. But no, I've never tested out the snake in the bathtub thing, and nor will I, because it's not fun for the snake. What was I going to say? So the shedding process. I'm actually thinking about doing a video on the shedding process, because it's a really interesting thing. So what happens is, for this little guy at least, he starts to hide about a week before he starts to shed. So his personality definitely changes, and I'm just projecting, but I would say that the shedding process kind of is like getting a bad flu. I would say they just don't look happy. He just does not look happy. And when he starts to shed, when he starts to hide, what's happening is that the old skin is getting separated from the rest of his body, from his new skin, by him excreting oils. So it takes a lot of water. So the snakes get very dehydrated during the shedding process. So the first rule is to make sure there's lots of humidity. He usually hides under some towels, some wet towels. Under some towels. So what I do is I just make sure that I spray them every day. See you later, Amanda. And Vagrant Sand says, snake oil, can you bottle it to sell? No, I won't do that. And by the way, good luck, Amanda. Mathbig says the first rule is don't talk about shedding. Anyway, so he just kind of like curls up and goes, go away, I don't want to talk to you. And so as he gets closer and closer to the shedding process, the oil starts to build up, and about 2 or 3 days before, about 2 or 3, maybe 4 days before he sheds, his whole body goes a dull color, like dull gray, and his eyes become a blue, and that's because the oil is semi-opaque, and that's all the oil is out, has basically just separated this old skin from the new skin, and that's why what we say going blue, and that's because so that's the whole thing. So if you hear me tweet about, oh, Lucius is in blue, it means that the oils separating the two skins has head up to a point where he's semi-opaque. So a good example would be when it's really misty, for example, if there's high humidity where you live, and you look out into the horizon, and the mountains are a slight blue color. It's the same sort of concept. This is really uncomfortable. Hey, I would vibrantly Brantley, I would definitely wrench you right now, but I can't move. Anyway, so what was I saying? So, and about 3 days before they shed, all of a sudden they become clear, like the blueness goes away. It doesn't mean that they've shed, it just means that the snake has reabsorbed that oil back into its body. And then about a day or two later, or maybe 3 days later, they shed their skin. Hi, Mew. Good boy, Lucius. Snake cuffs. I've been taken to custody. Snake Lucius has got her, and he's decided to stop moving. So he has actually arrested me. So that's basically the process of shedding. There's more to it, like, they're trying to figure out which protein gets excreted and which hormones, those sorts of things. So that's an interesting thing that I thought was a cool thing to do. When a snake has shed, you have to check the eye caps, which are like, basically it's the snake's version of eyelids. So eye caps are a transparent scale that goes over their eye to protect the eye. And if during the shedding process, the eye caps don't come off, it can end up damaging the eye of the snake. You also have to make sure that you check the tip of the tail, because that can also cause issues. And also you have to check the vent, because that can cause issues as well. So far, he's only had two sheds that didn't get rid of the eye caps, and they were his first 2 sheds. Ever since then, he's had perfect sheds. I love the comfortable position he decided to have. Yeah, for him. Hi, Kat. How are you going? And all right. So what else am I going to talk to you about? Oh, so basic newbie mistakes. First one I probably did. I wasn't warned about a lot of these mistakes, so I didn't really make a lot of the newbie mistakes most people do, but I did make a couple. First, thank you. The first newbie mistake I probably did was when he was shedding, I didn't give him enough moisture. The second, and so he had some problems shedding for the first 2 times. Oh, Tria, good question. What kind of hiding places do I have set up for the little guy? Well, I've got this thing. He absolutely adores this thing. And I don't blame him, because it's got lots of ways for him to sort of curl up inside, lots of places for him to hold on to. So because a snake doesn't have any hands, it needs to be able to grab onto things, and they use their tails to really anchor themselves. Okay. All right. Vibrantly Brantley. I will do. Hang on. There we go. Oh gosh, now the chat's catching up. I hope I've just added you as a moderator, Vibrantly, Brantley. Let me know if I haven't. Oh, yep. No, I have. Excellent. Um, yes. So because this mesh has all of these little hooks that he can hook his tail around. He loves to curl up in that. I also have a lot of tea towels just rolled up in the in his tank because he likes to hide under that. He's also got a palm frond, so it's about goes about the length of the tank, where he hides under that. And I've also got a plastic bucket that I had for my yogurt. So plastic yogurt bucket that I've cut in half for him to climb into there as well. So Math Pig, Critical Cripple is a mod. You let anyone be a mod. I know, it was a terrible idea. Oh, come on, guys. Everyone's asking you to be mods. If you're going to keep doing that, I'm just going to unmod Vibrantly. Blue collar heathen. She made me a mod, so that sets your standards. Yeah, that's true. What was I saying? Yeah, so he's got a lot of hides. He's still got the 2 hides that he had from when he was a hatchling, but he doesn't use them anymore because he's too big. They're just more there for decorations. I also have a hammock for him in his in the tank for him to just climb around in as well. Yeah, so that's my thing. That's the things that I put in his tank. I am thinking about redecorating his tank because, something new for him, gives him a little bit of extra things to look at. What else? Is there any more questions? Because I will shortly finish the stream. If you've got any questions, let me know. I'm really hoping it's not changing the gain. Oh no, he's fine. He's fine. One of the things he does is if I've got him on my wrist and then he goes onto my phone, he actually the phone picks up his skin really, really well. So it's almost impossible to be on my phone or on a touch screen when he's climbing all over them, which is pretty funny. What else am I going to say? Another thing that I learnt that I'm sure everyone's heard the story about the person who had the snake lying next to them while they're trying to sleep, and then it turns out the snake's measuring up the person to eat them. That is, have you ever snake dialed at someone? No, I haven't, thankfully. But I have a snake hung up on someone. Hi Muse says, I don't know if anyone's asked you this, but does he show any kind of affection? It's hard to tell. I would say no, because as I mentioned earlier in the stream, I don't think they're the smartest of all animals. I don't think they have an ability to feel affection like we do per se, but that's not to say that they don't have. Oh, mate, don't do that. Don't do that, matey. But that's not to say that they don't have a way to feel comfortable. So, as I said earlier, if he had a choice between climbing on me or someone he doesn't know as very well, he will climb onto me. He just seems more comfortable with me. He is starting to get the hang of Notcher, which is really cool. So Yeah, Callan says they recognize usually who is important to them, and that's true. And I did tell my friend that he seems to prefer to talk to me, and he goes, "That's because they know that you're safe." So yeah, that's probably the best. That's probably the best way to describe it. It's not affection per se, but it's comfort. What else was I saying? Okay, I lost that train of thought. So it's not anything. Oh, actually, I will actually tell you something. I've handled Lucius almost every day for his entire life, with the 24 hours between having food. You're not supposed to handle them within 24 hours of giving them food. So he has actually, with those exceptions, I have actually handled him every day. And I think that's part of the reason why he's such a chilled out snake as well, because he's used to being handled. Is a snake year the same as dogs' years from Stuttering Chris? Snakes actually are slightly longer lived than dogs. Like, well, this species, he'll live from 15 to 20 years of age, while dogs are about 10 to 15 years of age. So he is a year old, so he's probably about 4 years old in human years, I'd say. So I'd say, yeah. So he's probably, if we were to say who's what and when and the how and the why, he's probably about 4 years of age. But you can't really translate it 100% into human years, because a 4-year-old human is not nearly fully grown, while this guy almost is. Callan says all pythons in captivity can live up to about 30 years. Yeah. Stuttering Chris says he's almost old enough to drive. Yeah, no, next year it will be. Yeah, so he's he's probably asleep in my hand right now, just to give you an idea of how relaxed he is around me. He's also really doing a good squeeze on my hand as well. I'm starting to lose feeling in one of my fingers. Yeah, Callan said you don't handle a snake that's just been fed because it risks regurgitation, and that is true. I have actually, I've overfed him, and then handled him too closely, like too soon after feeding him, and he did actually almost regurgitate his meal. I felt pretty bad about that, and that's just bad husbandry. So that was a pretty, felt pretty guilty about that one. And I think, oh, that's right. I was going to tell you about the snake that was sleeping next to the person who like the person sleeping next to your snake. Okay, first of all, the main reason why it's false is that if every single animal went and measured themselves up to be so if every single animal that decided to sleep measure themselves up next to their prey, it would very, very, very quickly go it would very, very quickly go extinct because oops, sorry. Yeah, you good there, mate? Apparently you don't want me to. There we go. Yeah, so if every animal tried to measure itself up next to its prey, it would go extinct because it would never eat, because the prey would run away. Also, as a person who has been attempted to be eaten by this guy, they don't measure up their meals at all. They don't. They just go, there's something that's edible, let's try and eat it. Yeah. Also, by the way, being bitten by him is not that painful. It's like being rasped up against a rough brick wall. I mean, I've done more damage walking next to a brick wall than he's done to me. You do bleed a little bit more. They do have anticoagulants in their saliva, but that's about it, really. So don't. Yeah. So that's one of the things that I would. That's a thing. That's a misconception I would like you guys to understand and tell anyone. Is like, oh, did you hear about the person who was being measured up by the snake to be eaten? Completely false. Anyway, I think that's basically it. If you want to learn more about snakes, I strongly recommend the channel Snake Discovery. Emily, she's just gorgeous, very intelligent woman, very lovely, excellent energy. I strongly recommend her. Also, you've got, I think his name is Alex from Go Herping. He is also another YouTuber that I really appreciate as a snake YouTuber. There's a guy called Brian Poschnigger. I can't pronounce his last name. Would probably suggest not to rely too much on that person. He's got some good stuff, but he's also got other things that are a little bit. I think Poschnigger. Callan, do you know who I'm talking about? Yeah, Brian. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, he's not that great. He did a response to the Europe banning the breeding, I think, of a type of ball python called the spider ball pythons, and they have a genetic disorder that makes their lives very, very difficult. So yeah, so Callan's saying he's like the most controversial figure on snake YouTube. Can you say his last name or give me his last name? Yeah, so the spider morph is has a issue with its neurological system where it basically can't function very well. It can't strike. It's called wobble, and basically, as you can see, this guy heads down flat, whatever. But with this particular spider morph, the head is like goes around all the time, and some snakes actually end up dying from this particular disorder because they can't eat. Morton says Brian blah, 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 blah. Yeah, that guy. Anyway, so he did a big Brian blah, 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 did a bar. Yes, thank you, nerdy. Bars shiz. He did a thing on going, oh, this is going to ruin the snake industry and rah, 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 in Europe, but basically they said you're not allowed to breed, you're allowed to sell, but you're not allowed to breed these snakes because it is considered to be cruel. Yeah, anyway, so he's very controversial in the snake community. But if you wanted to go and learn more about snakes, I strongly recommend the Snake Discovery and Go Herping. They're very, very good, and I do enjoy their videos. So any more questions? Callan makes a good point. The wobble isn't that bad depending on the snake, but breeders have made it worse from the original batch. Yeah. Emily is not. What do you mean, Callan? I'm not sure what you mean. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of extra time to ask me any extra questions. Oh, Emily is not controversial. Okay, yes, no, she's not. She's lovely. She's very, very lovely. And so just wanted to say thank you everyone for joining me on this stream. Thank you for having a bit of fun with me. This week's video that I was going to put out, there's something going on with my my editing program, and I can't. Oh, Snake, Lucius, when's the next feeding? Too far away for you. Monday. I'm going to feed you Monday. Yeah. So anyway, the video for this week, there's something going on with my editing program, and it's corrupting the file, so that's going to make my life difficult. And yeah, I hope you guys have had a lovely time learning, sort of being on this stream. I've got a feeling Telltale is actually streaming now, celebrating his 144,000 subs, which is very well done. So please, if you want to go over and check out that one, I strongly recommend that you do, because Telltale is, one of my favorite YouTubers. He's a good guy. And yeah, I hope you all have a lovely day, evening, night, whatever time you've got over there. And don't forget, don't give yourself the raw prawn. See you later, everyone. End.